Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the books that I read in November, and I'm excited to get into this, so please remember to subscribe and let's talk about some books. Okay, I was able to read 4 books in November, so I hit my goal, but I feel like I cheated just a little bit because this book was very, very small with very big words, and so some of these books were easier to read and stuff, but we still made it through 4 books. So yay me, but let's talk about them. Okay, so the first book that I read was God Comes to Women, and this book is written by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have mentioned the last few book reviews that I go to a church or a Christian book club as well as just like a normal book club. And so the books focus more around Christ. A lot of them are written by church authors, not all of them, but there's several that are. So this one is, and I really enjoyed it. It's more of my understanding of writing. It's not super academic at all. It's more just a really good motivational speaker type thing to listen to, except you're reading it. And I felt like that just made it easier to understand. There is, some church terms that might be hard to understand if you're not familiar, but there are tons and tons of Bible stories about women, and then also just stories from nowadays about women and how God comes to women. Basically the idea that in the scriptures especially, you hear a lot of times that God comes to men through on a mountain or through some sort of vision or in the temple, but that's not the case with women. He meets the women at the well. And so it's different, and sometimes it's just because moms are busy. Women are busy, okay, and they're trying to sustain life, and so he meets us where we are. And so it was a really good book. It has a lot of good questions in the back, which is something that I am interested to go back through right here. They do have writing right here. I'd probably just write my notes in my own study journal, but they have questions for you to ponder on about how God is hope. And then this one's God waits for us and seeing God. So some different questions. So I really enjoyed it. We had a nice little discussion about it at our book club this last week. So if you have a Christian book club or a church book club for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, this might be a fun book for you guys to study and talk about. Okay, the next book that I read is for my normal book club, which I haven't been able to go to as much because my husband is usually gone the night that we do it. And so I haven't been going, but this is the book that they chose for this month. I think because it's Christmas. I wasn't there when they picked it, but it says The Life of Our Lord, but this was written by Charles Dickens. And this book is very easy to read. And just look at it's basically a summary of the Gospels of the New Testament, okay? It's going through the Christ story. It's Charles Dickens writing this to his kids. And I think in the opening it talks about, it has a little preface or whatever to let you know what this book is about. It was never intended to be published initially, and then it was. And so, because it was just something that he wrote for his kids to know about Christ and basically his testimony about Christ through talking about the story through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I just thought it was cute. They talk about how it's not edited or anything like that. So how he wrote it is how it appears. So there's some weird spacing. There might be spelling that's weird, sentences that are weird. I thought the idea of it is very cute and sweet, and I feel like it kind of is we should make sure we're writing down things we want our kids to remember, either through journaling, just normal day life, or our spiritual type things of journaling and writing down our testimony of Christ. So I thought that was very cute. I probably won't be able to go to this book club, but I still thought the idea was very cute. Okay, so the next book I read was Secrets of a Charmed Life, and I picked this book because last month I read The Nature of Fragile Things by Suzanne Meisner. I guess that's how you say her name, I'm not really sure. And I really love this book, and at least one of you had written in the comments that the rest of her books are really good as well. So I just picked one. I didn't even really look at the explanations, and I ended up picking this one, and I'll probably go get some more because I have loved both of these books. So this one is talking about the huge San Francisco earthquake, and I'll link the video down below last month if you want to know more about this one. But this book is talking about World War II and the London blitzes that were going on, and how kids were sent out of London and into the country to be protected. So this story starts in present day with an American who is at school at Oxford, and she goes to interview these two sisters that the story follows. They're half sisters, and she goes to interview the older sister and to hear this whole story. So it mostly, like most of the book is spent back in the 1940s, but there's a few like snippets here and there of when it flashes back to the present, and a few things like that where it just comes forward in time a little bit. And I loved it. I love this time period. It's kind of just my jam. I love historical fiction just generally, but this is one of my favorite time periods is World War II. And so it goes through these sisters and how they were sent out of London, but then the events that led to them being in London when these blitzes started, and these bombings coming in, you know, just all times of day. Before it was just at night, now it's all the time, and it's just crazy to read about. Like, I've read some things where you have the London blitzes going on, but this one just talks about it a little bit more, and again, it's just like so heartbreaking. I just can't even imagine, and terrifying, like the trauma from something like that for years and years and years, and just being scared to death, you know, because you're constantly hunkering down because you're being bombed all the time. And especially as a young child, you know, one of them is like 15, I think, and the other one's a lot younger, like 5 or 6, excuse me. And so anyway, it's a really good story. I feel like Susan, at least these two books, she adds in some mystery, not like in a scary murder mystery sort of way or even super suspenseful mystery, but there's just always some things that are intertwined that you just don't know about, and I think she does a really good job at creating a very good story out of that. Okay, so the last book I read was Bringing Elizabeth Home, and this is a story about Elizabeth Smart. I picked this book because I knew I could get through it quickly, and it's been sitting on my shelf for a really long time. So this one is written by her parents, and I have reviewed these two books by her here before. So this is just Elizabeth Smart, My Story, and then this is Where There's Hope, which is written after this one. And I don't know if, let me tell you what order I read. I read them, obviously, this one first, and then this one, and then this one. And I thought that was totally fine. Another order I think would be okay, because this one was written first. And it was written in 2003, and this was like 10-ish years later, I think. I can't remember, I just looked at the dates, but I can't even remember. And so this one was written a lot later, because this was written by her when she got old enough to like feel comfortable sharing her story and talking about all the horrific things that happened to her. But this was right after it happened and her parents writing this story. So I think it would also be okay to read this one and then this one, but I'd still save this one for last, regardless of the order that you read them in, just because this one is kind of a reflection on everything that's happening here and talks about other people's face stories and going through really hard things. So I think having the basis of the other two stories is good for that one, or at least her story. You don't have to have this book. But I really enjoyed this book. It was interesting to have. I enjoyed, as always, just weird when you're talking about really horrible things. But I thought it was really great to have their perspective, her parents' perspective as well. And it goes through, you know, basically just their side, not in super detail, but just everything with the media and the cops and just how much they had to be interviewed and how they doubted, like the cops, you know, they all became suspects, and just, you know, it's not only our daughter is missing, we don't know where she is, but just everything they're having to go through and being accused of horrible things. I just can't imagine how hard that must have been. And so it talks about that. The very end has maybe a chapter or two that talks a little bit about the Amber Alert and things like that, and stuff they were trying to get past, like, politically. And so that kind of stuff, politics just really isn't my favorite thing. Like, I just don't understand it and don't enjoy studying it. So that chapter wasn't necessarily my favorite, but there might be other people that like going through that. But it was a quick read. It's very easy to read, and sometimes it's like, I think they're both kind of talking, and then other times it has, you know, like this one has his name on it, and then there might be some that's just from her mom giving kind of the both perspectives on everything. So I thought altogether, all of these books gave an extremely comprehensive view on everything that happened and their faith building experiences, and how their faith really played into everything that was happening. I think those books did a really good job at showing all those things. Okay, so those are the books I read in November. It was a good month because I got my 4 books, even if I cheated sort of, just a little bit. But I'm excited for this next month. And remember, if you have book recommendations, put them down below because I love your recommendations. They sometimes become my favorite book. So just put them down below and I will get to them as soon as I possibly can. And please remember to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.